Okay. Good evening, everybody. It's good to see everybody and appreciate those from the public that are tuning in. Tim Mock, Deputy Director for the Department of Natural Resources, will go ahead and call the Colorado Geographic Naming Advisory Board February 17th meeting to order. With that, let me take roll call here. Dr. Way. Good evening.
Good evening.
Representative Will. Good evening.
Good evening.
Representative Benavides.
I'm here. Good evening.
Hello. Representative Exum. Do not see Representative Exum quite yet. Councilwoman Joseph.
Present.
Good evening. Commissioner Chimino.
Present.
Hello. Director Redhorse.
Good evening.
Good evening. Dr. Limerick.
Really present, totally present.
Perfect. Good evening.
Yeah, right.
Director Barry.
Here.
Hello. Mr. Benitez. Do not see Mr. Benitez yet. Miss Nelson. Don't have Miss Nelson yet. Dr. Gonzalez is excused. Director Garcia. Do not see Director Garcia and Director Wolf.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good to see you. All right. So we do have a quorum. With that, agenda item 3, review and approve the February agenda. Got the agenda here in front of you. Are there any edits, questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion to approve by Dr. Way. You got a second?
Second.
There's the second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now on to agenda item 4, review approve the January summary. Are there any comments, edits, corrections, questions? If there are none, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, agenda item 5, board member updates and announcements. You saw the Division of Natural Resources update there. Just have a couple of things I want to point out. One being that our recommendation to rename Chinaman Gulch to Yansing Gulch that did receive concurrence from Governor Polis. And then Ms. Runyon, we thank you. The USBGN has proceeded with a new case brief for Yansing Gulch and added it to the USBGN's most recent quarterly review list. That has already started the 60-day tribal review period in which all 574 federally recognized tribes will be given an opportunity to comment. Assuming that there is no objection from any party, that will be added to the BGN's April 14th docket for final decision. So that is moving forward. Thank you. Another update here, the Council of Geographic Names, and I'll put this in the chat here. So there is a Council on Geographic Names, name authorities, and we are now part of that by way of, oh yes, no, absolutely. I'm seeing Ms. Runyon's chat there. Yeah, I want to just say that I think that we are doing an excellent job in terms of the amount of note-taking and background information and discussion in regards to providing material to the USBGN, and really appreciate Ms. Abad for all of her work to help prepare all of those documents, meeting summaries. They're very, very helpful.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Representative.
And I second those comments. because it is good to have a comprehensive packet. But on the updates, before you go on to another topic, we also had a recommendation to decline the proposal with regard to Calkins Reservoir. So do we have an update on that?
We do not have an update on that. We are still working to complete that packet right now. We spent the majority of this month working on the Secretarial Order 3404. We'll talk about that a little bit further, but we are watching that timeline to make sure that we're able to get something in, get that registered for that April 14th docket. So we are watching that. We'll make sure that we're timely with that. Moving on here, I'll put in the chat the link to the Council of Geographic Name Authorities. Ms. Runyon might have a little bit more of an update on this, but basically it is a gathering of the state naming authorities where they get together both regionally and collectively a few times a year. And we had our regional council meeting. We are in the regional council that includes Wyoming, New Mexico, Nevada, Arizona, North Dakota, and South Dakota. Basically, we just kind of keep everybody up to speed on what's going on in our states, what are some of the challenges that we're working through. It was very interesting to participate. It's mostly an introduction for us. We spent some time talking about Secretarial Order 3404. We'll discuss that further in the agenda later on. It is true that these state naming authorities really run the spectrum from a board of 15 like ourselves to, in some cases, 1 or 2 individuals in other states. I think there was a theme in terms of manpower in terms of some of the other states, especially to process and work through some of these proposals. But they were also very interested to learn that Colorado includes state representatives on our board. So that was something that they all kind of, I think, took note of, and it was an interesting conversation. And we discussed how that really is working out really well for us in terms of the size of the board and the dynamics that we have, and that we feel that we have very good, intelligent conversations discussing these matters. There will be a national meeting in September in Maryland. We do not have the details on that. We're going to try and work on getting those details, and then talk about seeing if this might be something that we can extend to folks on this council to attend. So we're going to be watching that closely, and we'll keep you apprised when that date is all set up. Ms. Runyon, anything else to include on that Council of Geographic Name Authorities?
No, thank you. That was an excellent overview. And yes, this organization, we love our acronyms, COGNA, Council of Geographic Names Authorities, was established about 40 years ago. And it started out as the Western States Geographic Names Council, because really, to be honest, the Western states, and that would be sort of, Colorado and westward, were the most active when it came to geographic names. And then at some point in the 90s, it was expanded to include all states. And yes, there's quite a range of state names authorities, from formal boards like this, appointments, down to 1 or 2 people, because they only get but one proposal every 18 months. So they really can't justify having a full-fledged board. But these meetings are really a great opportunity for you to get together with your counterparts in other states and compare notes. And yeah, this one was certainly a meet and greet. We met in person every year for pretty much most of those 40 years. In fact, only stopped because of the pandemic, and we are trying to reinvigorate it. We've got a brand new executive secretary who's all excited. So these sessions we're having this month are to allow you all to meet your neighbors and share notes and hear about the secretarial order. So yes, Tim is right that the first meeting was last week of the mountain region. And then there's one more next week, and then 2 the following week. So any of you as a member of the state board are welcome to attend. You don't have to attend your own regional session. You can go to any one of them if you're really interested in seeing what other states are up to. We haven't done this before. This is a new thing with a virtual environment to have these regional sessions. They're working out great so far. And so I hope maybe any one of you could come to Maryland in September. Next year will be most likely Portland, Oregon, and then the following year, Missouri. So we like to plan a couple years out. And Colorado, in fact, hosted the conference in Boulder in 2006. You guys have a history of having hosted, and the Colorado State Board actually had its meeting. Hell, it's traditional to have a meeting of the state board during the conference. Everyone can witness your discussions. So there is a precedent. So maybe in a few years you can host again.
So we will keep you all apprised when the next regional meeting is and send along that information if you are interested in joining. And then finally here, and we'll discuss this a little bit later on, but as part of these meetings that we were discussing with discussing Secretarial Order 3404, public comment is going to be extended from 30 days to 60 days. So we'll kind of discuss what that means further in the agenda when we get to that item. With that, are there any questions or any additional updates that any board members may have at this moment? Representative Will.
Thanks, Jim. My question, when are we going to be able to meet in person? I'd actually like to meet everyone. I mean, Zoom's okay, but at some point, are we going to be able to, I mean, we're meeting everywhere else, so we're going to be able to meet?
Yeah, so that's, I think it might have been included in my updates. I forget if I did not, I apologize. We are waiting guidance right now. Right now, our boards and commissions are continuing to meet remotely. There has been an approval process to seek the opportunity to meet during the COVID spikes here that have been coming down. We expect further guidance from the governor's office towards the end of this month, looking at those rates. We expect that if they continue to decline, that will be lifted. So, Representative, what I was going to do is on the heel of our discussion on the Secretarial Order 3404, that might actually have some implications for when we want to meet next. And we could look at perhaps looking at something in March. We can do it a hybrid so that we've got, those new owls in our conference room and hooking those up so those that can or are able to. I know that this time of year, especially with the weather, can be sometimes kind of tricky for those that might live outside of the metro area, but we can certainly look at that. And so why don't we have a conversation when we talk about our next meeting, what folks are interested in doing. But yeah, I think we're very interested in getting everybody together.
Thank you.
Okay, and yeah, I see the comment there. In the meetings will be open to the public, just as they are here. I suspect that going forward, we will probably continue to provide some type of remote access, regardless, for individuals to participate. We've been operating some hybrid meetings through the course of the pandemic here rather effectively. Any other questions or other updates from board members? Okay, seeing none, let's go to agenda item 6, and this is consideration of USBGN cases 5279 and 5280, renaming Negro Creek to Clay Creek and Negro Mesa to Clay Mesa. I believe we'll probably just have a bit of an update on this one. Councilwoman Joseph, I think you might have, it sounds like you held a committee meeting yesterday, as a matter of fact, and just wondering if you might want to share how that went and bring us up to speed, and if there's any future meetings.
Yeah, thank you for this. We had a meeting yesterday, February 16th. We had 37 community members attending this meeting. We had Dr. Wee was there, Dr. Gonzalez, Commissioner Supis, and Ms. Roinian as well. And the meeting was about 1 hour and 15 minutes or so. And we discussed a little bit about the history of the area. We heard from community members that the name should be changed. And part of the discussion is that the name should be changed to a name that restores and also that educate the people in the area on Black history, and also just restore some form of restorative justice. Some of the suggestions that I brought forward as well, from what I heard from community members, was Mayor Penfield Tate, Mayor Wellington Webb from Denver, and Judge Jackson who was the first Supreme Court Justice for the state of Colorado. But ultimately, after our conversation with Commissioner Supis, he said that he will go back to his students, and he's asking for about 30 to 60 days to come back and bring a name that is suitable, that reflects the history, and he's gonna look for a Black person who lived in the area in order to commemorate the people who live there. So I'm not sure if I'm missing anything else, Dr. Wade. Do you want to add something else?
No, that was a very good summary, and it was a very good meeting. Thank you very much for organizing it.
Well, can I add, I have to say, Dr. Wade helped a lot. First, I didn't really know how to put the meeting together. I think after having that conversation with Dr. Wade, he really helped, and also Johnny helped me as well. And, Representative Benavides also intended to be there, and we've had a conversation. So even though you weren't there, you were there in spirit. So I just wanted to thank the board ultimately for really helping me and putting this together. I think it was a collaborative effort from all of us.
Great. That sounds fantastic. I appreciate you putting that on. And yeah, like I said, as Commissioner Chimino commented, the invite looked fantastic. I thought that was very appropriate, so appreciate that. Representative Benavides.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Joseph. And I'm glad the meeting went so well. I guess my only question is, you said you had a lot of community members there. And so I'm wondering if it only the commissioner that was going back to talk to the schools for a name, or were the community members also going to propose a name?
I think I really appreciate the commissioner being there. He was very open and receptive to the conversation. It was a very long conversation, which is recorded as well. But I think I got a sense from talking with him that he would appreciate the opportunity to go back to his students and have that conversation with them, because, excuse me, from our conversation, he expressed that he did not feel comfortable having someone who's outside of the area renaming the area. So I understand where he was coming from, and giving the students another opportunity to look into this and come up with a name, well, educate them as well. So ultimately, what I hope, and I think what I think from the conversation, a lot of the Black leaders who were there, is that a name that is educative, that is restorative, however way it happens, we would be grateful, whether it's through the students or someone else bringing a name. But I think for right now, the commissioner asked for 30 to 60 days, and I think that should be honored.
Are there any other questions for Councilwoman Joseph? Councilwoman, do you think, should we then continue this to the next meeting, or should we continue this to March, April, the April meeting, or May? What do you think about that?
I think maybe that's a question we can open up to the entire board based on what I've relayed, that, the commissioner requests about 30 to 60 days. I wonder if the board has, I think that should be left to the will of the board.
Okay, I think we can continue to put it on the calendar, and if there's some updates, then we can provide those until we get to that point that we're ready to make a decision on this. So if that sounds okay with you, we'll go ahead and just continue this, continue this to each next meeting so that we keep it kind of fresh on the plate. With that, let me open this real quickly up to public comment. Is there any public comment on USBGN case 5279 or 5280? Go ahead and raise your hand. Your electric hand there. Seeing none. I do have a question here from somebody in the chat. Do you know what school is it? Do they just have one school? I imagine they just have one school district in Delta County, but I'm not entirely sure.
I don't remember exactly the name of the school. I'm thinking Cedar Ridge, but I'm not 100% sure. I can check on that quickly and see if I can find it.
Okay, I mean, we can figure that out. Representative Benavides.
Yeah, that's correct. It's on the attachment. I think it's about page 23 of our packet. It's Cedar Ridge
Okay,
High
great.
School there in Delta.
Okay, there you go. All right, seeing no public comment, we'll go ahead and close public comment. And with that, unless we've had any further discussion or questions, do we have a motion to continue USBGN cases 5279 and 5280 to our March meeting?
So moved.
Second,
Got a motion and a second, and any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Great, thank you very much. That is some very good progress. And also express to the commissioner the next time you speak with him that we really do appreciate him going back to the students in considering this matter. We really do appreciate that. Okay, moving on to now agenda item 8, Secretarial Order 3404. This is declaring SQUA a derogatory term and implementing procedures to remove the term from federal usage. We'd sent, tried to make an attachment there. I'm not certain if you were able to get this. Here's what we've been able to deduce. This has been removed from the USBGN, and the process exists now within this federal task force that has been appointed to handle this. They have, I will say, to what I can understand, have been continuing to kind of dial in the process. Director Redhorse, I know that USGS attended your monthly meeting, and from what I understood from that was that the 90-day consultation, tribal consultation has already started. By the secretarial order, that has to be wrapped up by April 24th, 2022. The public comment period has now been extended to 60 days from 30. And what we expressed during one of the meetings that we had was that we're trying to kind of understand how we can, is this board, if we want to consider some recommendations from our state and make recommendations via public comment in this process, it's kind of hard to do that without having an understanding of the tribal input in our ability to take that into account. The task force has not released a date when the replacement names and the names of, or the replacement names will be made. If you do the math, or if I do the math, which can be dangerous, April 24th, if you back that up 60 days, they've got to get something out the door by February 24th, roughly. So we expect this, and they've communicated that they expect that this will be released within a matter of days or weeks, maybe week. but we're waiting for it to be released in the Federal Register, and that will start the clocks. What we've tried to do and what we're looking for some direction from this board here is we would like to make, if we would like to consider that input and seek out recommendations from the state and even the tribes, and seek to perhaps maybe give our recommendation on the replacement names for some of these features. Because you remember what they're looking to do is survey, I think 5 miles essentially around the feature, find a geographic name nearby of some type of geographic name nearby and replace that, use that as the replacement name. They are going to give priority to weighted priority to tribal input. And they're also going to try and give, in absence of that, priority to replacement names that are already under, have a proposal going along with it. And they're going to evaluate all of that, and that will be the list of replacement names. What we've done here, and Johnny's allowed me to share my screen, so bear with me while I do this here. Can everybody see? No, one second. Yeah, that should be it. Okay, can everybody see my screen here that says geographic locations with the term squaw at the top?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So we're thinking about if the board is interested in entertaining some recommendations from the public and making a recommendation to the governor on some replacement names other than what is proposed via the task force, we can put together a form on our website where proposers can go in and enter their information, their first, last name, email, their phone number, the county in which they reside, their affiliation organization. And then this drop down here will list all of the locations, the type they are, and what county they're located in. And then what they would propose to rename this geographic location to, any additional comments, and then obviously we'll take the opportunity to see if they want to be signed up on our information and receive news and agenda items and such. So we can convert that and put that onto our website. Let me stop sharing so we all can see each other. And we would send out a press release, and I'm thinking even reaching out to the counties with a letter and to the tribes identifying this. We would work with Director Redhorse though on this process to make sure that this all kind of jives with their process. And we can then consider names at one of our future meetings and make a recommendation. Board members, oh, go ahead, Representative Will.
Sorry, yeah, Tim, I like that, because people are interested in this and changing those names. There's interest. I think we'll get a lot of interest from that. So I highly recommend doing that.
Yeah, and I do want to, the comment there, how will this survey be able to tease out and prioritize recommendations by the indigenous communities? I think that is a very important question and something that we are going to, like I said, we're hoping that we might be able to time input from the tribes so that we can also incorporate that into our recommendations and consider those names. That is something that we will have to work out how we characterize and prioritize or express how we would expect these to be prioritized. I would think that, and this is my opinion right now, is that should we not be able to receive the tribal input in time, that we might send along these recommendations or send along our recommendation, not just every recommendation here, but our recommendations with a caveat that we would support or give deference to or priority to tribal input or recommendations on these names. So I think that's something we're gonna have to kind of see how that timing works out. We just don't quite know that yet until this is all released. Representative Benavides.
Yeah, I think won't all of those come back to us? And then the guidance we're going to review will tell us how to prioritize which ones we want to recommend, because they're recommending them to us. But I was going to say that might help us. I saw the questions you had on there, and as you finalize that, instead of asking just, are they from an organization, if something more specific, like, are you submitting this proposal on behalf of a tribal nation or other organization? Because by the way it was written, anybody that's a member of an organization could put that, and that doesn't mean it's coming from the organization.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great comment. We did discuss that a little bit in terms of yes, making sure that they were on behalf of an organization. I think that's probably important. Director Redhorse, I don't know, you've been part of some of the conversations here with the task force and the USGS. I don't know if you've got any thoughts in particular about this in the alignment with the tribal input.
Thank you, Chairman Mock. I appreciate just sharing all of this process and the survey indeed, and just for advocating, because that change from 30 days to 60 days, I think came from conversations that the task force was having with Colorado. So I think extending that length for public comment in order for this board to submit their recommendations was great. So thank you for all of that. I do think it is important to get community recommendations. To Representative Benavides' points, I think it's also important to make clear whether they are submitting those recommendations on behalf of an agency or a tribal nation. I think there's a comment in the chat to ask for a tribal affiliation, which would give us, I guess, a clearer perception whether a community member or a tribal member or an AIAM. I'm so sorry, my dog gets jealous when I'm not paying attention to him. Would help us, I guess, determine whether it's coming from the indigenous community or on behalf of a tribe. So I apologize again for the barking.
No, not at all, not at all. So with that, I think we can, you know, if we want to go along with this, then we can probably roll this out in relatively short order. Now we'll make that that edit to this document, asking if they're submitting the proposal on behalf of a tribal organization. Representative Benavides.
This is another question, but it was on behalf of a tribal nation or organization. The list, which you did the drop down, and I'm looking at the list was attached to our packet. There is the three that the state it's in. There's a Squaw Canyon in San Juan County, and it says the state is Utah. There's two more that says the state is Oklahoma. And I know we share the border. So is it that it's in both states, and will both states be submitting proposals, or how does that work since those three are listed on the Colorado list?
So that's a good question. We do share the boundaries, and some of these, my understanding, do sit on that boundary line, in that there will probably be some additional, there could be some other state input on this. Ms. Runyon, I know that the task force, this is under the task force's purview, but I'm wondering if you could speak to this generally in USBGN, when you have a geographic feature that sits on a shared boundary line, how that is then kind of handled.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, basically the BGN staff would reach out to all parties just as we would with any other proposals. So certainly, yes, The Colorado board and then the Oklahoma board on geographic names would get a copy, just as you all do. They prefer to reach out to their county governments themselves. They would do that as part of their research, and then provide that back to us. And yes, as far as the task force, it just happens, Oklahoma has not had their Council of Geographic Names regional meeting yet. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks. So it's possible, and it might be a good idea if one of us lets them know that Colorado is taking on this additional step of inviting public comment, and just see if perhaps Oklahoma is willing to do the same. They may choose not to. They don't have much of a board right now. So yeah, it's like any feature that's shared among more than one jurisdiction. Everybody has a chance to weigh in, whether it's a normal BGN proposal or this process. So, whether it makes sense for you all to reach out to your counterparts in Oklahoma and the county government, I don't know. That's probably asking too much of you all, but certainly this is going to get complicated without a doubt. It's one thing when you got a feature within Colorado that straddles two counties. You start about two states. For what it's worth, Utah was in the same session with Colorado last week. So they're probably a little bit more aware. They have a more robust board too. So as far as I know, they're not doing anything like Colorado is doing though. So it comes down to coordination, sharing, if you get a proposal for a feature that straddles the state line, I assume that the task force will share it. And that's what's not clear to me at this point, is how much of any of this input is going to be shared back out to the community or to the public. It's one thing to get feedback through the Federal Register notice, but what is a mechanism for making all that public so everybody can comment on everybody's comments? So I'm as much in the dark on that as you are right now, but things will start to happen very soon, and your timeline is pretty much right on, I would say.
So thank you for that. And this will be a public link on our website, and individuals will be able to share this around. Director Redhorse?
Hi, sorry about that. I lost my train of thought. I did want to also add that even though we are asking as a board for public comment and for members of the Indigenous community and tribes to submit through us, is that there's going to be this whole other pathway that we need to remind ourselves for tribal consultation to occur, and that task force is going to prioritize those recommendations from the tribes. So I think it's important to note that it could be possible that tribes don't submit through our form, that they are going to participate in this other pathway directly to make those recommendations to the task force. But we did ask the question whether or not this board could also maybe write letters of support for, or if this board wants to support the recommendations made by those tribes through that other pathway. So I just want to put that as a reminder for all of us to consider.
Thank you.
I would add that's a great observation there, Director Redhorse, and certainly when it comes to tribal input, I think we all saw. Look at the Mestahey Mountain decision that involved tribes that were both in and outside Colorado. There was great working relationship there, input from Oklahoma tribes and Wyoming, and so I think that's an example of how it can work. And we recognize that tribal nations obviously, predate state boundaries. So tribes don't fit neatly into state buckets. It's inevitable they are going to have interests across state lines too. So I think you're right. They probably will end up submitting any comments through the tribal consultation period, maybe rather than through the state process. But it's all about awareness at this point, letting them know that this is out there and it's a fairly tight window. So yeah, thank you for that comment.
Representative Benavides.
Thank you. And I guess I got a little lost. Okay, we put this out and they have time to comment to us. When are we cutting this request thing I don't know what we're calling it, this form off. And then are we planning to do a special meeting for the board to evaluate to see if we want to make any recommendations from those that have come in to the 3504 process?
Yeah, so this gets into the calendar conversation. So we do know that public comment is due, it will close by the task force on April 24th. That is a Sunday. We will need to evaluate the proposals, the names that are submitted, and get our recommendation to Governor Polis with a confirmation. I think that would then put us somewhere around the week of April, the end of April, let's say either April 14th, 13th, 14th, or 15th. Allow us the time to prepare our recommendation and send that to the governor and get a response hopefully that week, and then submit those, like I said, either April 22nd or the 23rd, 24th. Obviously, we do have a weekend there. That would mean that we would sit down for an evening once all of these come in. So we would close it, I would assume, April 11th, and allow us the time to put that into your board packet and get that out in time for an April 14th, or we could cut it off sooner and give us a little bit more time to get you the names to sit there and review them. What do we think about that timeline? Representative Benavides?
I can only speak for myself, and Representative Will can weigh in as well, but April is a really bad time for us doing the budget. So I doubt we can participate in a meeting that week. Maybe on Sunday, the 10th would probably be the best day for the legislators, but otherwise I can't commit for probably any day that week.
I would agree. You know, look how busy it is right now. And then April's gonna be worse, so finding just any time is pretty tough, so I'm in agreement.
Board members, other thoughts in terms of that timeline or how to handle that? What we could do also is just open this up for the month of March and seek public input by March 31st. I don't know if that, if we bump up our conversation, or if that's still, because it's April, it's still a busy time for you, I imagine. And so that's always, yeah, I understand that that's pretty tricky there.
Yeah, and I would just suggest the weekend. I mean, I know people don't like to meet on the weekend, but for that month, that's probably the only time we're going to have to guarantee.
Board members, any other input on the weekend?
I'm fine with that.
April 10th there. Got one thumbs up. We're okay. A couple thumbs up. Okay. All right. All right. So my next question then is, do we still want to meet? So our next meeting would be March 17th. And I don't know if we just want to have that meeting on April 10th and kind of work through these names and forego the March 17th meeting and instead hold it on just April 10th and do it that way. Any thoughts about that?
More efficient.
It might be a longer meeting, but I agree. They're pretty close.
That's what I was thinking. It might be a longer meeting, but it'd probably be more productive.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Now, let's see here, morning or afternoon? Do we want something at like 1 PM? What is, or later in the evening? What works best for everybody?
So Tim, you're proposing April 10th
The April 10th that we would meet. Yes,
on a Sunday, April 10th.
yes.
Okay.
I like the sound of 1 o'clock, but I'm pretty flexible.
Yeah, I mean, later in the afternoon is better for me, but I can make 1 o'clock work too, Tim, so whatever.
Okay. I mean, we
That
could
works
always,
for me.
that works for you all. Okay. Dr. Limerick, I see that you're traveling on that day. Is that okay if we proceed, or?
This is the first time I will have gone to an airport since March of 2020. So no wonder I wasn't thinking of that. I think I mean, I might be able to be in an airport and have my laptop, but it never occurred to me that I might be traveling, but it turns out I will be. That would be, this is very sad. That would be my first missing a meeting of this group. I think everyone could probably bear up under that sorrow. So I would say move on. And if I can check in from the airport, I will do that. But
Would later or earlier be better for you, Dr. Limerick?
I would say probably the 1 o'clock thing. I would be on the Pacific coast. And if I just went to an airport and planted myself, that 1 o'clock or so would be fine. 1 o'clock, that would be noon Pacific time. So that would be okay. If anyone has a guide to how to travel, if you haven't traveled for 2 years or so, please send me that guide, because I'm really doing my best here. But I think I could easily check in from the airport.
What about, would it work for, let me ask another question. Let me go back. How would the Saturday work for everybody?
That's the reason I'm traveling, is that I'm going to a memorial service on that day in
On
California.
that day?
I would
Okay.
on that day.
April 9th is when one of the major political parties is having their state's assembly on
Oh.
April 9th.
Okay.
Oh,
Dr. Wei?
Yes, I too have conflicts, and I will be away on March 17th and returning from England on April 10th. Sorry.
well. How is that? I've lost my trail here a bit, but would the weekend of April 2nd and 3rd, would that be of any viability?
I think he was going by when the comments come in.
That's what I
We
thought.
cut off the time for the comments, but perhaps if there's, like if Dr. Wei is going to be out for a week or two, that once we have a final list of the recommendations, that be sent to everyone to take a look at, and they could comment by email on that.
Yeah, we can certainly send that out. Dr. Wei?
Yes, I think that'll work. I will have my laptop with me. And in spite of my best efforts, I do check it almost daily.
Okay, so look, if we were to do the 10th, I've got a reminder here also that it is Palm Sunday, if that matters to anybody. But if we do April 10th, when do we want to close the comments by? Do we want to close them on April 4th so that we have time to get them out to the board, and then to consider and submit your comments before the 10th so we can consider those comments during that meeting? How does that sound? Okay. So that leaves us then. So what we will do is we will hold that meeting, our next meeting on April 10th. And I'm sorry, did we say 1 o'clock? Okay, we said 1 o'clock. We will close public comment by April 4th. We'll make sure that we send that out to any of the recommendations that came in to the board members. And we will meet and discuss those and get a recommendation if we decide to forward one on put together. We all good with that? Okay. That is what we will do. Are there any comments, any additional comments in terms of that form or anything here that we might be sending out? Okay, we will work on getting that posted to our website as soon as possible. And we'll see what comes in and ask for the citizens of Colorado to provide feedback on these names. And throughout the process here, we'll keep track, Director Redhorse, with the tribal input and how that might proceed, because I do think that kind of will have some bearing on when we'll be able to, or how we actually characterize some of our recommendations. So that sounds good. Okay. With that, we will go ahead and move on to agenda item 9. Appreciate everybody hanging in there on that and working through that. Agenda item 9 is our process document. We had put this together just before we began considering naming proposals. And we made some changes in there. Let me draw your attention to some of those changes here if you've got the document in front of you, or I can share it on the screen if you would like. But page 1, that paragraph under guidance, what we did was characterize that this lays out our standard process. However, we did put a disclaimer in there that at times the federal government may create unique processes through secretarial or executive orders, such as, but not limited to, expediting elimination of derogatory names. And under those unique circumstances, we might come up like we just did with a special process and communicate that during one of our meetings. Actually laid out 3 stages. There was the introduction, and then first consideration and second consideration. We have eliminated, or combined, I should say, the second and final considerations, so that we will introduce the proposal at our meeting, review it, identify any additional information or committees to assign, and then we will move that into the consideration phase. And at that next board meeting, we will be able to, and this is looking down towards the bottom of page 3 and the top of page 4, where we will, under Roman numeral 3 there, we will conduct a vote to continue this to a future meeting pending desired information and further consideration. Approve, deny, or submit a counter name change proposal. So we've kind of consolidated, like I said, the processes into 2 steps here that allows us to move forward with something more immediately rather than continuing this forward. The one piece that I did not address in this was a comment that Representative Benavides made, which I thought was a good one at a previous meeting, in regards to our consideration of renaming an unnamed feature in Jefferson County to what's been proposed as Cimarron Peak. And what do we do with and I don't know if this is something that we want to put in our process, document, but we did want to discuss this. Are we comfortable if we just deny it that it remains an unnamed feature? Or do we want to take that opportunity to form a committee or work with the proposer on finding a suitable name for that unnamed feature? And so that's what we've laid out here in this document. You can see then most of it's pretty standard, or pretty much the same from how we left it when we put this together. We've got the Appendix A looking at community outreach, and then Appendix B, how we would consider the following factors for each proposal. So those are the big changes in this document here. Just looking for any comment, questions, feedback, thoughts from the board. Representative Benavides.
Thank you. I see a lot of the changes that we had talked about over past meetings. So I think going through the meetings and seeing what kinds of issues might arise was good. So when I looked at this, I had a few comments. First was on page 2 on section 3A. It looks, that's process prior to proposal introduction. First, there looks, it's a small thing, a typo at the end of line 2 there. You have for at a future, one or the other, for a future board or at. But more importantly, that process prior to introduction, what's come up is we're taking a lot of time because we're not doing initial letters that might help. And we had talked about the board administrator sending out letters if we know of some groups that should be contacted that haven't been. And I mean, we had the one proposal on Calkins Lake and no one had reached out to the family till maybe the third time we talked about it, you know, or done that information. We talked about just the feature we had today, which was Negro Creek. We've kept moving that forward, but there was groups we could have sent it out to initially, and we didn't do that. So that might be good to put in there on prior to proposal introduction. And I have some more, but I don't know if you want to take input on that first.
Board members, any input? I think that is good input. I would agree with that. We've got those letters crafted up, and that we will work on getting those out as we introduce the next kind of rounds here. So I think that's probably good to kind of lay out in this. I'm thinking something to the effect that we will forward this to stakeholders, known stakeholders, potential stakeholders, some language like that. Councilwoman Joseph.
Yes, I just want to add, I fully agree or in support with Representative Benavides. I think my question, I guess, to you, Chairman Mark, or anyone else who can answer it in your team, are there lists, for instance, when it comes to Native American or African American, if we're renaming a specific feature, is there a list of people that we can say, okay, these are the list of stakeholders that we can go to for each specific group of people?
So we've been working on that. That was in a previous meeting. We had this conversation, and we did invite the public and also members of the board. If you can think of those groups, organizations, individuals, Miss Abad has been collecting those into a spreadsheet for us to also inform when these come about. So that is information that we have been seeking and would invite, board members, and again, members of the public are invited to reach out. Miss Abad can put the USBGN email in the chat there, where to send those, and that we will keep a record of that. Yes. Do we have, to your point, do we have some of those specific groups you mentioned? I'll have to go back and look. I don't know that we do not have a comprehensive list, so would certainly look to the board members here to help us out with that.
I would like to add, I think maybe the challenge is, I don't know if this is, maybe I'm asking for too much. How do we know? What I'm wondering, for instance, when I had the event last night, I reached out to the African American community, well, not all of them, to some African American communities here in Colorado, and I did get, you know, a decent number of community leaders. So, but I don't know what you have and what you're looking for. So that's where I am, because I don't know, maybe you already have these people on your list.
We will, the individuals that you had at your meeting, we probably don't have quite yet, so forward those on. And what we could do is just put a reminder to the board members each month that if you have names or contacts, remember, just a reminder to send them on, because we do need that level of assistance to help us out with that. And again, we've certainly have invited the public, and Johnny just posted there in the chat again, are welcome to send those stakeholders and interested parties. So we can share that list. We'll get that list put together in terms of what we do have. But also if we could ask everybody here to help us out, we really would appreciate that.
Chairman Mock,
Yes.
with that, I know you're asking for our input, but is there a way, I guess, to ask the public for organizations who want to be added to the list at all that we may not be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could, what we might be able to do is send out an email to those that are on our email list already and that have taken the time to sign up, asking for additional input in terms of stakeholders to reach out. Is that getting to your question, Director?
Yes, I'm guessing if there is a point in the website saying if you as an if your organization or agency are interested in receiving updates on proposals, et cetera, then sign up and just add yourself to the listserv, as I guess although we're a mighty group, we may not be aware of all the agencies and organizations that are interested that want.
Yeah, there is that link on the website that allows the public to go on and identify or sign up for that information. Absolutely.
Should I go on?
Yep, I think we'll continue to move forward here. What else do you have?
On page 4, the second paragraph, Roman numeral 3, where we'll conduct a vote and at the very end, deny or submit a counter name change proposal. Every time we've done this or talk about it, we have to explain that process over and over again, that it has to be resubmitted to USBGN. That may be explaining that a little more instead of just saying submit a counter name change proposal, you know, because that's come up several times in our meetings.
Yeah, and I think we've got some history now in terms of that, so we can characterize that as well. That makes sense.
Okay, then on page 5, section 5, Roman numeral C, this is where we need to reconsider the proposal. Yeah, and that's if we become aware of new information or the governor requested. But this third one of USBGN requesting us to revisit, I have a little concern without saying they have to provide us some new additional information or something. But that will come after we've made a decision and sent our recommendation to the governor that they're asking us now to reconsider. I would think we'd need something more from them just than a request.
Ms. Runyon, you might be able to help us out. Is there any situation in which you might come back or the USBGN might come back and ask the state naming authorities or the state naming councils to revisit a decision?
There's a couple different scenarios. One would not be so much a revisit as a clarification. For example, if a proposal has come through the state, you've done your vetting, you've gone through the governor, you sent it on to us, and then the BGN is reviewing it for a final decision and has some question, maybe something's not clear in the minutes, maybe there's some question about, did you consult this group? Just needing more clarification before the US BGN votes. So it's not really a revisit, that's just kind of a clarification. Revisit typically comes from a proponent after the fact when they have provided us with new evidence or some compelling reason why we feel we should reopen the case. This is assuming if the case has been denied. In order for the US BGN to revisit the case, we would like the Colorado board to take another look at it and say, yes, it gives you a chance to review the proponent's new evidence as well. So it's not left up solely to the BGN to be asked to overturn its decision. You know, we would want you all to take another look at it. So it really would only ever come up if there was a disagreement on the outcome. The proponent comes back and says, well, I've got some more evidence that might have made a difference to your vote. We would want to give you a chance to also take another look. Or I suppose conceivably, if there was a name that was approved and then another name came along after the fact, that might, in hindsight, have been better, we might ask you to take another look, which might involve you potentially undoing your original decision, reversing your decision, and then potentially considering the new proposal. So I guess that's not exactly a revisit because you've already made a decision, it's official. So it's really a matter of, there are times when we have to relook at a case and we would want the state to also take another look at the case. I hope that makes sense. I'm not explaining it very well. Sorry.
I don't think it's a reconsideration of the proposal, because if you got that while we were still considering, you would provide us that information. But since we only make recommendations to the governor to come back at that time, just because somebody who was the proponent, if we didn't accept their proposal and used a different one or somebody else's submission or something, then I just couldn't see reconsidering it because they went to you because we didn't agree with their proposal. And if it goes through from the governor and he submits it and it gets to your office, I would say you would probably, because then it's the governor's proposal, that you would say, you know, Governor, you sent this to us, but we've got all this new information. And then the governor, we're back to where the governor can ask us to revisit it, but not necessarily you all.
Okay, fair enough. I guess that makes sense. It comes from the Colorado board to the governor to us, so it should go back the reverse. We'd ask him, yeah, I mean, question is, and I don't know whether we would communicate directly with the governor's staff. I guess it's something we'd have to probably deal with if and when it happens. It's more likely to be a case where if a name was denied, and this kind of alludes a little bit to your earlier Cimarron Peak discussion, you certainly don't have to submit another name. And really the question will become, if you've decided that Cimarron is not appropriate, you can leave the feature unnamed. Nothing that says you have to find another name. It comes down to whether does that peak need a name at all. If it needs a name and Cimarron's not the best name, you want to propose another name, that's fine, but you don't have to. And the BGN many times will reject a proposal and just leave the feature unnamed. So in a case like that, where you've left it unnamed, and then maybe the Cimarron Peak proponent has better evidence, something happens to justify his proposal, I guess at that point, yeah, we go back to the governor's staff, I guess, and they would decide to send it back to the Colorado board. So this is one of those where it's, until we get a real case, it's kind of hard to dissect the process.
So I think actually what we've just kind of characterized, I think we actually we can strike this line altogether. Looking at the top, we have, if we become aware of significant new information, that leaves it up to us in some regards. And then if the governor asks us to reconsider, I think those two actually will probably cover 99.99% of the times, and we can deal with the 0.1% here when we get around to that. How's that sound? Okay.
And I had one final thing on this, and that was section 6, paragraph B, where we worked to receive the governor's comments on a recommendation to approve, because we sent it to him within 10 days of the board's vote. Then we work with them, the staff, so within 10 days of the board forwarding the final recommendation to them. I guess that those two actually time frames are confusing, or we shouldn't say will, that maybe we'll attempt to do that, because we're not making 10 days right now.
Yeah.
So you might want some more flexibility in those two and some clarification of what B means.
Yes, we can do that. On the first part, yeah, I hear you. We're trying to get the muscle memory and find a way that we might even prepare kind of what the recommendation might look like a little bit in advance. So we've got that prepared, so we can meet the 10 days, and that's still our goal, and we will get there. Let me think about that. Let me work with the governor's office and characterize that, and we'll come back with a recommendation. How about, Representative?
That's fine. And I didn't have any more comments with that first part, but since Ms. Runyon brought it up and you had brought it up on the name, if it's submitted on a unnamed feature, if we have to do anything, I think it's what we did was proper, because the recommendation came to us from a proponent for a name for an unnamed feature, and we rejected that. And we sent that recommendation to the governor, and then would be up to the governor to say, well, maybe you should think about that some more, do something with it. But we just act on the proposals that have come through. So I don't think we have to do any more on those.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think we're covered. Okay. I think those are good suggestions and edits. Board members, do we have any comments about any of those, or questions or discussion, or is there anything else that jumps out to anybody? Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I don't know why it took me so long to ask. With this guidance document, because we are in the process of, updating it and making amendments, etc. Is it okay to share publicly, or are we ever going to get to that point so the public will know what considerations, or just the process that the board is taking into consideration when we're making our votes, etc.?
Yes, so that's a great question, Director. As you remember, we've had this in draft form to work through some issues. We've kind of revisited it now. We've cleaned this up, and we do want to share this out. So what we will do is we will make these edits here, and then we'll put this on one of our upcoming board meetings, and we can approve, and then make sure that this is posted on the website. Representative Benavides.
I agree with that, but I thought we were just doing the first half. I had one more comment on the Appendix B.
Oh, yeah.
On are we going to go through that some more? Just that's okay. On the board will consider the following factors. One of the factors when we did this, those all sounded great to all of us, but one of the things that have come up both with Chinaman's Gulch and the ones we're doing now with Negro Creek and Negro Mesa is that we were I think the whole board is, but I'll speak just for myself. We're concerned with names in areas that may have impacted particular groups more than others, and perhaps in a very detrimental way. And that those groups should, and because they were most impacted or from a detrimental name, that should be a consideration. I don't, of those bulleted points. I don't know exactly how to say it, but that's how we looked at it, because I think for Chinaman's Gulch, it was Trout Gulch was proposed, I think. And we felt like, wait a minute, that impacted Chinese people or other Asians that lived in that community. And we should consider that same way we're looking at that. And I don't think that is reflected in those bulleted points.
Yes, I would agree with your opinion there in terms of how we are operating. I think that we are providing priority to those communities in which derogatory names were directed towards. So I think, yeah, how we characterize that, board members, do we have, what do we think about that, including that as one of those factors? Councilwoman Joseph, was that a hand or? Okay.
I know, I was gonna say, you all don't have to speak at once.
Tim,
Is there any possibility that might get too broad?
Can you give an example? Because I'm not sure what that means, too broad, because I think the two examples we've had were directed at the Asian people living in that area and about African Americans living in those areas. So I'm not sure where it would be broad.
Well, I'll admit, I'm thinking about the upcoming name of Gore Range. And I think it's safe. I don't think what you suggest would be too broad. An example I offer, and I hope these matters we discuss are very sensitive matters, and so hopefully we board members all understand each other now. And if we make mistakes, they're honest mistakes. The Gore, when we get there, we'll talk about Mr. Gore and his actions and everything. And I don't think any indigenous people, well, we'll find out what the historians tell us, but I don't think any indigenous people were directly harmed. Maybe they were, but when we get there, that would be something where I wonder if it might, this bylaw addition might get too broad. But it's hypothetical, and I do think what you suggest will not get too broad. I just offer that for discussion.
Thoughts, Representative Will?
yeah, I tend to agree actually there. I mean, I think the two that we have, it's perfect and it's working out that way. And I think it will continue to do that if those that have been most harmed, I guess, with that. But I kind of agree with the Gore Range thing. That may, I don't know, there's going to be those. I don't see that it'll get all that broad, but I think giving preference to those that were harmed in those particular instances is great. But I don't know that we have to put it in writing.
These are just factors. So I don't know that, and I'm thinking of like derogatory terms, and I don't know that Gore falls into that category, but also that these are just factors that we would discuss in terms of how we consider proposals. And I think this kind of provides some level of guidance. That said, I guess I would look at, you could see where, maybe if Gore, and I don't know the history there as well, or don't recall it, took some type of hostile actions against particular groups or something like that, that might then kind of factor into this. That's different than the derogatory term, but it's actually the actions if something's named after an actual individual. Let's see here, Miss Runyon, do you have a comment there?
Yes, thank you. And I'm the first to confess that the USBGN's outreach efforts are we've probably heard, they're fairly minimal in that we always consult, obviously you all, the State Names Authority, and if it's on federal land, the Federal Land Management Agency, and we must do the tribal notice. And we always contact the county government, because to our way of thinking, the county government is elected to represent all the people of its county. But I guess you could argue that the couple have been discussed already. Chaffee County initially pushed back on changing Chinaman's Gulch, and perhaps didn't do the outreach to the Asian Pacific community that we might have assumed would be part of their review. So it sort of didn't work there very well. And then even with Delta County initially, they have not done any outreach to their Black community. It's not until you all sort of push back and say, wait a second, we need a little more input from you. So I guess my point is, I really commend the Colorado board for going outside the very confined list that the USBGN has. We just don't have the resources to locate all these organizations within each state that might potentially have an interest. And there's always that worry that if we select a particular group for one feature, then why haven't we, or one proposal, why don't we do that for every proposal? There's sort of the worry that we're going to leave somebody out. Maybe that's not a valid reason for not ever consulting them. But again, the reality is we just don't have the staff and resources to cover all these bases. So we appreciate the fact that you are. I would think kind of your idea of collecting a group of interested organizations, or a list, and have some sort of list announcement, or make these groups aware they can go to the Colorado board website and see what proposals are pending and have a chance to weigh in, sort of cover your bases on every case rather than maybe pick and choose. Because then again, you do worry you're missing somebody. And a final comment real quick about Gore Range. You're absolutely right. The word Gore itself is not offensive. It's the fact that Gore did some offensive deeds, what puts him in the category. And my understanding from reading some of the background of this was he was such an avid killer of wildlife just for sheer pleasure. He wasn't even a hunter per se. It wasn't for food or sustenance. He just loved to kill animals, and it really did decimate the food supply of many tribal groups in that area. So maybe he personally didn't attack tribal groups or Indian people by virtue of the fact that he wiped out their food source, indirectly had a very negative impact on the tribes in the area at the time. So you could argue that they were impacted by his activities. So that's just what I've heard so far. I know you're right, this will come out a lot more in the discussion of Gore Range, but that's kind of why the name change proposal has come forward, and we have a native name has been proposed as a replacement.
Thanks. Other board members' thoughts? Looking for direction here. Should we characterize this? Should we take a stab at some language, or leave this out? What are we thinking here?
Perhaps look at some draft language and give it a month and a half to think about, and we get together on Sunday and maybe approve it then.
We will work on some draft language. Representative Benavides, did you have a comment there?
I was just going to say, because really this whole Appendix B is not prioritizing anything. It's just saying the proposals that come to us. It's things we should look for. And I think we should look for in these that, like the last one, proposals to eliminate existing name problems, and to that consider the impact of groups that were in those areas that may have felt negative impacts from the use of that name, something to that effect. That's fairly general.
I agree with that, Adrian. I think that's a good comment to add that there.
Okay, we'll work on some draft language and we'll include that when we get this back out for consideration at our next meeting. Representative Benavides, anything else that you've got identified?
Nope, I think that's all my comments.
Great, I appreciate the review there. Thank you. All right, board members, any other comments, discussion, thoughts about the process document? We will work at getting this finalized here and for consideration so that we can get this up on the website. So appreciate that conversation. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 10. General public comment. If there is anybody from the public that would like to make some general comments at this time, please identify yourself by raising your your little Zoom hand there, if you would. And is that Miss Oliver?
Yes, thank you. My name is Shayna Oliver. I am a tribal member of the Navajo Nation. So ancestrally, there were 48 tribes that used to occupy Colorado and not just 3. And I think that's probably one of the problems about renaming, as well as that we need to identify, revisit what indigenous people knew this land as prior to the Indian Removal Act, which was the genocide that's still not acknowledged by this government. I mean, you're recognizing the internment camps on the Asian community, but we still haven't got recognition about the genocide of Native Americans during the Indian Removal Act when it was enacted, and which spread out through a whole decade, over a decade of removing indigenous people from their ancestral lands. So I think it's highly offensive to not rename this these sacred lands and ancestral lands without collaborations of tribes. So I really wish that you guys be mindful that, you know, there is a genocide that's still not recognized and is still continues today through the lack of acknowledgement of indigenous people and our ancestral land. So that's what I want to add. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Appreciate your comments. Board members, any questions or comments? All right, next up, I see Tim, is that you, Mr. Swales?
Hey, yeah, that's me. I just want to say, yeah, I just want to voice my opinion that I support Mount Evans being changed to Mount Blue Sky. And I had some justification behind that. And I wanted to just share some quick physical geography info about it. This comes from USGS research, and Mount Evans is part of a larger rock formation called a batholith that was formed deep under the Earth's crust. And the USGS puts it at 1.4 billion years ago that it was formed, which is really incredible. I mean, it's older than people. It's older than things like fruit or flowers. And I think something that old kind of deserves a lot more respect than to be named after a 19th century territorial governor who organized one of the worst massacres in US history. So thanks very much for your time and thanks for listening to me.
Great, thank you, Mr. Swales. Appreciate you being here and for your comments. Next up is Miss Gloria Martinez. Good evening, how are you?
Yes, thank you. My name is Ariana Gloria Martinez. I'm Chicana. I've been removed from even knowing the indigenous peoples I come from, south of where we're at. But I wanted to really thank Shayna for everything she said. And I think I want to hear from the board, you know, what was the process in deciding, you know, who would make up this board? Because I understand everyone was appointed by Governor Polis, but this like reiterates the problems that you guys are expressing when it comes to outreaching to the peoples of these lands that you are saying in these meetings should be prioritized with their recommendations. But if the people of these lands, which are still here today, have always been all over Colorado, or what's now called Colorado, why was that not the decision made from the beginning? Those should be this board should be Native-led. Decision-making processes from the very top should be Native. And this is like an example of systemic colonial structures that prevent these practices from happening in a good way, and that would have already gotten rid of trying to, reach out to different peoples of these regions or peoples impacted, because some of you do not make up the original peoples of these lands. So how can it be okay that the whole reason why these names of lands are needing to be changed is because the names were decided on and approved by colonial settlers? And then how are we not recreating that situation here?
Great, Ms. Gloria Martinez, I appreciate you making the comment. A couple of things here. When we have the public comment, I just want to remind everybody that that's what that is. The board was appointed by Governor Polis through an executive order. He was looking for a board that represents a diversity of individuals to serve on the board. We can take your comment, and I'll be happy to pass that along to the governor. So I appreciate that, and staff. Thank you. Is there any additional, I'm sorry, Commissioner Chimino.
We don't normally respond to public comments, but regarding the board membership, I want to quickly say that this board will probably be around for many, many years. Maybe it won't be disbanded again. It was disbanded for a while, and that's why we have a large backlog of names. There'll be opportunities. All of us on this board will term out. There'll be opportunities for other people to apply to be on this board. And I hope that there'll be lots of applications. And I just wanted to give that insight, okay?
Yeah, actually, that's a great point, Commissioner, is that this board, the appointments are term limited, and as with our other boards, the governor continues to make new appointments. So this board is not, it will not look this way in the future. I can, at the next meeting at least, or we can, if you share your email with Ms. Abad, we can get back to you and share the appointment list where individuals may go on and volunteer to be appointed to one of the Colorado's boards. Thank you.
Tim, I just put the link in the chat.
Perfect. Okay, there's a link there in the chat. There will be a link to a drop-down list essentially on that website that'll list the boards, and they do collect names. They do hold those names for those that submit some interest to serve on a particular board. And I would encourage anybody that might be interested in joining this board to do so. Mr. Roy Boyle, good evening. How are you?
Hey, buenas noches todos. Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know here that I stand in solidarity with my cousins. And that's why I even said that there should have been more representation, the original peoples. And just so everybody knows, as we're talking about membership, right now there's an effort to address the environmental injustice that's happening down different groups. One thing that I will comment on, and I don't mean to do this publicly, but there's actually a member here who actually participated in some of the demoralized areas, and I'm talking about Greeley. And it's really interesting that you see people that have actually had this type of activity, and then now they're representing something that's so important, and this is historical. And I really think it detracts from some of the efforts that we all are trying to do. And I want everybody to know this comes from a good place, because I think this is part of the process. We have to have these hard, tough conversations and know that we're going to get through them. So just know it comes from a good place. I just had to say that.
Great.
Todas
Thank
unas
you.
8
Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Ms. Gloria Martinez?
Yes, just one more question. Thank you for addressing my question and what I was trying to express. How likely is it that Governor Polis would actually appoint a community member or someone who are leaders of these lands? We have many of them on the call right now already: Shayna, Shannon, Beverly, Dini, to actually be on the board. Like how, like truthfully, how, because that's easy to say, you know, for us to just apply and then we have a great chance, but it's all structural. Is Governor Polis really going to give that fair and equal chance, or is it going to be set for people in different political like positions in Colorado, or governmental positions in Colorado?
Yeah, the governor takes quite seriously, and that is how we get the majority of those that serve on our boards is through that application process. I'm sorry, Dr. Limerick?
Yes, I was going to ask, and I don't know about the propriety or, well, I don't know about this, but I was certainly as a young person not expecting to be on boards, whatever it was I thought I was going to be as a young person. I did not see that coming. So I'm wondering, is it, it seems like it would be permissible and okay for if any of the younger folks here chatting with us today from public comment, if they want it, can they meet with a member of the board and get coaching on what path leads to this kind of service? Would it be all right for me to do that? Or is that, well, I don't know. So, but it seems like I might have enjoyed that as a young person, to have someone say, this is the sort of, as if I totally knew exactly what the route or path was, but how to position yourself for this kind of opportunity and service. So that is my question. Is that an okay thing to do for a member of a board to do? And if so, younger folks, hi, here I am. So don't be strangers, and if that's okay. But Tim, I'm not doing anything that we wouldn't get to do as members of a public service group, right? I could just do that.
Absolutely. You are more than welcome to meet with interested individuals. We are certainly welcome that same opportunity. So if anybody would like to get in touch with me, the easiest way is there with Miss Abad. Put her email address into the chat, and happy to sit down and listen to these, or explain these opportunities, and get to know one another and have a conversation.
I should say that I am a little preoccupied these days with the fact that my generation, the baby boomers, seem to be pretty low performers when it comes to intergenerational transition. So wanting to look a little bit better as a baby boomer, I think the welcoming of the folks who are younger than us, I think that's something that a number, maybe especially in the academic world, this has not been our strong suit. So that is my hope. And so Johnny can just give folks my address or whatever it is that would get us in touch. I'm for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, let me see here. Councilwoman Joseph.
I just wanted to follow up with Member Limerick to say that as a millennial, I also open myself up, and I would imagine a lot of the young people would find me relatable, hopefully. So please do reach out. I can put my council address in the chat just for community outreach.
Great, thank you.
I'm putting my address here too.
Okay, great. Beverly, help me with your last name. I apologize. I just want to get that right. How are you?
I'm good. Hello, thank you. My name is Beverly Castaneda, and thank you for allowing us to be here at this panel. And I too have some concerns about some of the decisions that are being made here, because we would like someone to represent our communities, someone who is here in the heart of our communities, someone who is here with the people who are living in what may be offensive or what may be respected, or how we can communicate in a good way to where we can bring equality and understanding with compassion and love to the people that live here. We understand that the history has been painful, hurtful, and the genocide of our peoples, the indigenous peoples. We understand that, but we are here too, making room for what we want in our lives. We are here. There's more than enough room for all of us to be here. So I feel like if we had someone to represent from our community who understands the heart of our people, who understands our pain and our suffering and why things are offensive to us, then you would understand what we need. And then we can live here with peace, because there's so much pain and suffering that's taking place. So that's where we're needing a voice. We're needing a place to be able to voice this, so that reciprocity can be made to the land and for the people and for the animals. So when you're not understanding what's offensive, well, let's take the time to get together so you can understand what is offensive to us, because we're talking about our future generation children, not just the indigenous peoples, but all peoples, future generation. That's what we're talking about. But in order for you to understand us, you have to be in our hearts to understand what we're talking about. So that's all I wanted to say. And I thank you, Patricia, for opening up. I would really like to sit and talk with you and maybe learn and maybe have a more understanding of the political things that are taking place. So that's all I wanted to say. And thank you to all of our community members who are here. I love you and thank you for voicing and speaking. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Ms. Castaneda. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here and for your comments. Thank you. Any final public comment? Okay, seeing none, I do just want to say that we do, and I think I speak on behalf of this board, we have been overwhelmed with the participation and the interest in this board, and I really do sincerely appreciate those of you taking time to join us each month, provide public comment and feedback, and participate. Your comments in the chat, we really do appreciate that. Look forward to any opportunity to sit down. Please take a minute to reach out and we'll get some folks to sit down and have a conversation. With that, board members, we're at the end of the agenda. Are there any final matters to discuss? Any additional comments? Commissioner Chimino, I see you came off mute there.
I was just preparing to make a motion, but I'll pause for a while.
Okay.
Not hearing any comments, I move we close the meeting.
Second.
Got a motion in a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We stand adjourned. We will see everybody on April 10th. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.